I think it's important when we talk about technology in a tax administration context to think about it as an ecosystem. So the reason I say that is because we started with what we call tax administration 1.0, where everything was paper-based, there was an administration-centered approach, there were manual processes, periodic and retrospective taxation happened, but I think the idea is that when it's paper-based and it's desk-based, there is a lot of delays. A lot of you will remember this from India's perspective as well. Many years back, delays in refunds, etc., used to be the big in vogue topic that people talked about, right? So I think when you have the sort of old school tax system, that is a very big concern, and that is the traditional system. Now then we have tax administration 2.0, which what we refer to as the electrification of the existing system. And the reason we say that is because we started with a system which worked a particular way, which is paper-based, etc. We found technology, yes, but we found technology to use technology in the existing system. So we didn't replace the system, but we found ways for technologies to aid the system, right? So instead of filing a paper-based tax return, we had e-filing. We have tax administration centered still, yes, but the tax administration using a lot of technology and connectivity to improve the system, improve the timelines, etc. So there are automated processes there too. You have periodic taxation, but not retrospective, so much more streamlined. And you see the benefits of a tax administration 2.0 level system already because, for example, in India, it's not a very big discussion now about refunds and delays. And the reason is because many taxpayers actually get their refunds on time. So it's not that big an issue because of that level of electrification. So when we talk about AI and decision making, I think that I am usually very careful about talking about how AI can have that decision making, at least in the MAP and APA context. But I think that AI can really support this. The reason I say this is because I think the competent authorities who've done MAP and APA here will attest that there is a lot of legwork and a lot of work that is associated with MAP and APAs. So that includes preparing a position. That means doing the transfer pricing analysis which is related to making your first position, which includes when the other competent authority shares a position to try and understand whether your analysis or the taxpayer's analysis coincides in some way. I think trying to find that data and trying to find that legwork, we could really have a lot of support from artificial intelligence. I think that's the more substantive side. Procedurally as well, you can actually see that there could be a lot of support from AI in terms of case management as well. And I think that competent authorities can really be helped in terms of managing their inventory. So what are the sort of cases that you have? You can categorize them easier. You can try and see if there are different cases which have common points. Of course, I would always say that the competent authority should still have the ability to look at these different cases and then proceed them, etc. But in terms of prioritization, in terms of looking at what would be the high risk, what would be the issues that you can focus on, I think technology can really help there. I've given the example of Brazil. So if you look at the Forum on Tax Administration's Tax Administration 2024 report, you can actually see the 23 report, I think. You can see that Brazil has a pilot project for their tax tribunal and for their tax administration, where in terms of inventory management, they've started using AI. And I saw a statistic in there which said that that led to 94% of an increase in resolutions just because they can organize their cases better. So I think in terms of inventory management, caseload management, and issues like that, and I think Pramod sir can get into it from the Indian context later too, I think there are a lot of benefits that technology and AI can do. But the last 2 points there, I think I would like to stress on that anything that we talk about in technology, AI, in that space, I think there is a real human touch that is required. And that requires a lot of training and mindset shift too.
Talking from my experience in the ITIT and about the judiciary in general, the story so far is about the introduction process and the facilitation process. And primarily, we have been confined with the virtual courts, with the filing of the appeals through the digital mechanism, paper books in the digital mechanism. So it's, as a matter of fact, so far at the interaction level. Undoubtedly, it has been a game changer in the sense the access to the courts has increased considerably. And I had the privilege to, in post-COVID period, our ITT Mumbai benches was the first bench anywhere in the country to start through the virtual courts. And within 20 days of the COVID lockdown starting, I think me and the then President Justice Bhatt, we heard a stay petition. We started with that process. That time it was looking too futuristic, but today it has become a normal thing, and this is happening across the country. We are seeing this. But then the point really is, how much does it help you in effective resolution of tax dispute? How much does the technology help? So there are 3 further steps ahead. Second thing would be where you use the disruptive technology in the administration of the tax judicial forums. And it has to be used for the administrative forums. For example, something as simple as allocation of cases, the optimal utilization of the resources, and also for ensuring that the progress of the cases are monitored in an effective.
See, if you really look at the tax administration, let's split it into 2, right? One is the individuals, the second is a case of corporates, right? If you look at on the individual side, the kind of information that one gets on AIS, one gets on TIS is up to a level where it's almost 99% accurate that you hardly make any difference to your individual tax return. That's been my experience and the experience of people whom I interact with regularly. You hardly make any edits to the data that's out there. So if you really look at it at the written compliance assessment level, at least for individuals, we have come a very long way. The AIS information that it gathers from multiple places fairly puts it out very accurately. I mean, it's as good as you get a draft return from the system. All that you need is to check and do it, right? Now the question is, how do you now take it to the corporates or non-individual business assessees, right? That's where the challenge is going to be. Now, I mean, just as a thought, right? There's most of the companies or non-individual assessees today anyways go through GST, and there's most of the data on invoices on either purchase as well as sales invoices are there in the GST system. What's probably not there for corporates, I'm just trying to draw a parallel to how an individual assessment works or individual data works, is all the banking payments that a corporate makes is probably not there in the system in a manner it can be put across, right? So possibly a step in that direction of looking at what has worked well for the individuals, can that be replicated for corporates or non-individual assessees? There are going to be challenges because there are going to be international transactions. There are going to be transactions which probably are book adjustments, neither going through cash nor going through invoices. Those are exceptions, but I think what we have done as a country in the tax administration side on the individual side is so commendable. And probably that's a good starting point to look at and see what has worked well there, where are the gaps to replicate it for a corporate assessee, and then probably bridging that gap could be the way forward.
It's not just about resolving tax disputes, but the way to resolve tax disputes is firstly to prevent them. So in this panel, we're going to be going through the entire flow of tax administration, because that's where prevention really starts. We will talk about how we can really use technology to resolve tax disputes in a seamless and a more efficient manner. Kuntal, you mentioned that you're looking forward to a time where cases are going to be resolved in not years but months, but we are actually looking at resolving them in few seconds, if that may be possible. And we will also, of course, talk about the ethical use of data. Data privacy is becoming a very big concern with the amount of information which is there. So we will be talking about ethical use of data and privacy concerns in this panel. And of course, we are going to be talking about disruptive technology. So when we talk about disruptive technology, we're not really talking about just regular technology and using emails and sort of stuff. But how can AI or systems like belonging to AI, whether it's blockchains, whether it's cloud computing, machine learning, how can they really transform the way tax function is operating? When we talk about transforming the way tax function is operating, we're talking about tax administration, we're talking about industry, we're talking about judiciary, transformation at a global level, information exchanges taking place within countries. Mukesh was talking about in the morning how in yesterday's session, one of the panelists had alluded to how different sets of books have been maintained for different purposes. Now, that's the most inefficient way of probably, dealing with different requirements of different agencies? How do you really use AI to, to have data at one place, but at the same time, make sure that the data is being used in an ethical manner? It's not really, private information is not leaked up.
So I think whilst India has made notable strides in terms of, faceless assessments, and I think on that side, definitely reducing of paperwork, giving some sort of method to the madness, I would say, tracking of the data, timely execution of, calling for adjournments or making sure that, the taxpayers delivering on their tax payments, receiving refunds. I think on the administration side, we have made notable strides. From an industry perspective, the gap that I see, and perhaps, Pramod sir can highlight on this a little bit more, is what happens between us actually making those submissions to the AO all the way up to ITAT. I think that's where the gap is from an industry perspective. Because you have the time lag with CITA. Whilst you have the virtual hearings, you have DRP, what do you do from a strategy perspective? Because the sound judgments at this stage seems to be coming from an ITAT level. Obviously, everything these days in India is connected to our PAN and Aadhaar cards. And I think that's the right starting point, right? Because by virtue of linking everything, the tax administration already has access to all of this information, right? It's about consolidating this data and asking the right questions. And that's where the bot comes in. It's, are you asking the right questions, or are you creating duplication for the taxpayer, by virtue of having lack of resources or tax officers changing or whatever the case may be. But I think the base is already there. It's about consolidating that data, implementing disruptive technology, which is the topic, and then perhaps making it easier for the taxpayer to comply, which is, can you then look at all of those bank statements and send an individual, a notice saying, this is your advance tax payment, click here to pay. I mean, is that something that's going to work in the future? From my perspective, probably the data is already available to the administration.